Hey everybody.
Hey everybody.
Just wanted to get an Ireland wrap-up video in so that we can tell everybody sort of what we think about the time that we've been here. We are now a little over 4 months into our long-term travel experience. I think there's a strong chance that Amazon thinks we're dead. At this point, we haven't been able to order anything for a very long time, which feels a little weird. And I'm pretty sure both of us have forgotten how to drive a car. But other than that, things are going pretty well. So let's get right into it. Let's start talking a little bit first, I guess, about Ireland. What do you think?
We've really liked Ireland. We arrived on, I think it was August 22, in absolutely pouring rain. Could hardly see out the taxi windows. Our host was kind enough to meet us because we were a couple hours late. We got held up in Lisbon and arrived a couple hours late here, but she was kind enough to wait for us and give us a tour of the Airbnb. And since then, we've loved it. We were about ready for some not hot weather just as we left Porto, Portugal. The temperature was starting to climb. So we were kind of ready to leave that because we didn't really have an outdoor space and it was hot to move around and really walk and see things. And we arrived in Ireland and it was cool, to say the least. Without any air conditioning, almost, I don't think we found an Airbnb when we were looking that had AC, and now I understand why. So it's been a pretty good 6 or 7 weeks.
Yeah, I think weather-wise it was a bit surprising because when we did arrive it was raining pretty hard, but we actually haven't encountered a ton of rain since. We've had wind and we've had cloud and it's up and down here a lot, but I think the weather's been overall pretty good for us, like low 20s and moderate and usually a breeze of some kind blowing through.
Certainly hasn't prevented us. We've been lucky. Certainly hasn't prevented us from doing anything. Quite frequently, it feels like it rains every day. It'd be very cloudy in the morning, then it might clear off. We might get some blue sky. We might get a bit of rain in the afternoon, but over the entire time we've been here, maybe we've only had one day where you could say it kind of rained all day. That's it.
Yeah, it hasn't stopped us from doing anything, which has been good. Other than the weather, though, I think we both really have liked Ireland so far. There's definitely a culture here. So not having come here before, I had that natural inclination to think, well, is it going to be like going to England? And I think it is considerably different. There is a distinct culture here that's a little bit different from being in England. It feels different to me anyways.
Yeah.
What do you think of the people?
Very friendly. We have had, which is also one of the nice things, we were able to talk to our service staff, people in stores if we need to ask for something, bartenders. We've been actually able to talk to them, have a conversation, which was a little difficult when we were in Portugal. So we've kind of enjoyed that, and everyone has been very pleasant and very cheerful, very nice.
Yeah, I think I've said this a few times. You hear this all the time from people, especially on travel channels and stuff. But you hear people always say, "Oh, the people are so friendly in all these places." But and it's not that we've really ever experienced anyone that's been particularly unfriendly. But I think Ireland's a whole different animal. If there was one place where I could say it actually is friendly people, it's here. It's just amazing to me how many people like actively engage us. We're not necessarily out there kind of engaging people a whole lot, but it hasn't been hard here at all. It's been very
and they
easy to
quite
do.
frequently ask, obviously we don't have an Irish accent, but they quite frequently ask if we're tourists or if we're visiting or we're working, and just are also willing to just stand and chat about it, which is also quite nice. It doesn't feel like it's forced.
No, not at all. And I think compared to, like, and again, we've only so far been to 2 countries, so outside of our other travels in the past. But on this long-term travel, we've now been to Portugal and we've been to Ireland. There is definitely a language gap in Portugal, so that might explain some of it. But most of the people we were interacting with in Portugal spoke English quite well. But I think one thing we noticed, and maybe it's part of where we're staying, and we'll get to that in a second, but the level of interest in us and communicating with us is much higher here. And I think maybe because we're not in quite so touristy an area, right? So the people we're interacting with have a little bit more time to talk to us. And you know, there's a chance they might see us tomorrow.
They're
unlike in a
honestly, they're
tourist
just
place.
not assuming that they'll never see us again,
Yeah.
which we've run into a lot in Hawaii with service there. And we kind of felt that way in Portugal, that because it's so heavily touristy, and especially in the areas where we were, I think that's just a kind of a mentality, is that they don't expect to see you again. So you get the service, a smile, a hello, and that's as far as it goes. We're here because we're out in the suburbs. They just assume that we live here. So
Yeah,
it's been kind of nice.
It has been. It's been really good, and I don't think it was far better than I expected, to be honest. So I think it's been really well. I've got my notes here of things to talk about. That's why I keep looking down. But so let's talk a little bit next about staying busier here. I think compared to Portugal, where we went and saw the tourist attractions, and mostly we just walked. We didn't really go, in depth to see anything. We didn't find ourselves with a ton of time either to do day trips in Portugal. We wound up not being able to do the 1-day trip that we expected to do. Here we've been a lot busier. We did, a lot more touristy things. We did the Guinness Storehouse and we did St. Patrick's Cathedral. But we also did quite a few day trips here to Dunleary, to Dalkey. And then we did kind of bigger trips around the country to Galway City, Cork City, Kinsale. I think we've been a lot more active here, than we were in Portugal.
Agreed.
I don't think there's a particular reason for that. We could have been as active in Portugal probably as well, but it is really easy here with the Airbnb right beside the tram station, with good train access everywhere. It is really easy to either go into Dublin, central Dublin, and do things, or to get around the country, honestly. Yeah. So it's made us more active and stayed busier. Plus, I think generally around our neighborhood, the walking's not as interesting. When we were in the center of Portugal, there's all kinds of history, like within a 10-minute walk of us. Here, we're out in the suburbs a little bit, so to go see the history, we have to move around, and
we had a couple days where we took the train downtown and we hit all the highlights downtown. Dan had a pretty extensive list and a walking path set up for it, so we hit all of those spots. Got lucky, not a rainy day, it was kind of pleasant. So we did see kind of everything that there was to see downtown, and we did quite enjoy that.
So let's talk a little bit about living in the suburbs. So one of the things that was different here versus either Lisbon or Porto for us was that we couldn't really find an Airbnb in the center of the city of Dublin that sort of met some of our expectations and criteria and stuff. So we wound up having to come out into the suburbs a little bit. We ended up south of the core of the city in Dundrum, and very close to Dundrum Town Center. And I think we actually got extremely lucky. Like we both feel that way.
Yeah, an awesome host and just a great Airbnb. We're on the top floor. We're on one end, so we kind of don't even really have a neighbor against any of our walls. And that neighbor is kind of quiet. So, and there's only 2 units on this top floor. So we got really lucky. Everything works well. The shower is awesome. Beds are comfortable. The kitchen works really well. We have eaten in a lot more this trip, this Airbnb, and it's all worked out really, really well.
I think too, being out in the suburbs allowed us to sort of be away from the tourists. So our original goal with this whole, when we sat out on that patio in Lisbon 4.5 months ago and talked to everybody on here about starting this adventure, part of our thing was to try and not be in the center of the tourism spots, because that isn't really, we don't consider this a vacation really. Like we're trying to live in these places. So So being in the suburbs feels a little bit more like real life. We're not exposed to as many tourists. There's not a lot of tourist attractions around. So you got to move around a little bit to do things, which has been really cool, particularly because it's been easy to do from here. The Lewis tram, which you're likely going to hear at some point during this video, goes by periodically, and it's right at our doorstep. So it's super easy to get on and get
it's
around.
cheap.
It's
Really
really
cheap to use.
Yeah, we got cards. We got cards for the tram, and we use them pretty heavily now. So we also have the Dundrum Town Center really close by, which has been, I think,
8-minute walk.
Yeah, it's it gives you, I don't know what there are in there, 100 stores or something. It's a really big mall. It's got pretty much everything you would need. Tons of restaurants, big grocery store. Everything we need within, it's, like you say, 6 or 7 minute walk or something from here. So,
agreed.
Yeah,
and I was able to find a place for my nails over there, so I've been over to the nail spa twice. That was really convenient. I really didn't want to have to hop on the train and go trundling off to get that done. Dan could have got his haircut either at the town center, or there was a drop-in place also on the way over right beside the Luas station or the tram station. There's been a Boots Drugs for anything we needed there. There was Marks and Spencer, a bunch of clothing stores, kind of like the Bay and Eaton's. And there's even an Apple store. So pretty much anything. 2 Starbucks, although we did not partake while we were here. So it's been really convenient. Couldn't have asked for more.
And right by our Airbnb here is the Lewis tram station, which I said, but right beside it is our sort of our local. So we go to this Brickfield gastropub all the time now for wings or for pub food or for a Guinness here and there.
Largest order of wings we've ever seen.
It's insane, yeah. But the wings are really good. It's a good pub for sure.
And everything is served with fries. So.
And then, as you know, behind us here, we've got the Airfield Estate. So we get this little cross section of feeling like not only are we in the suburbs, it also feels like we're also in a bit of a rural environment, even though we are surrounded by a big city everywhere except for this farm right next door to us. So it's pretty cool. It's given us kind of the best of both worlds.
It gives us something to look at. They move their cows around. They move the livestock around to various fields. They come into the fields. Cows all run. So it's been kind of fun. We went over there a couple of Saturdays ago. I think it was Saturday in the morning. They have a very small little farmers market. They have a cafe where you can get coffee and croissants, but they do serve a lunch. And it seems to be very popular with moms and kids. So that's kind of nice.
Okay, let's talk a little bit about Dublin City. So we're out here in the suburbs, but we go into the city fairly often, into the core of the city. I guess it's all part of Dublin. But we've gone to a few pubs there. We've definitely experienced the whole pub culture and the Temple Bar area. Interesting, very touristy. We've gone to the cathedrals there. We've seen pretty much all the sites, as Heather mentioned. We've got a video for that, which we can put a link to at the end of this. But I think in general, in terms of cities, and I'll see what you think of this, Heather, but I think after coming from Porto and Lisbon, where the core area was so overrun with tourists and hard to move around, I actually found Dublin really not that bad at all.
I agree. It was the only time the Lewis was really tiny bit full was a couple of days we had to go down essentially during rush hour into the city, and the trains were a bit full for a couple of stops, but once all the school kids got off, very comfortable. Moving around downtown, I don't think we ever ran into a day where you were just shoulder to shoulder with tourists. It was very easy. We really didn't worry about pickpockets. It's relatively clean. We never felt unsafe wandering around down there. So really kind of quite like the downtown area.
Yeah, I think it's been easy. Like it is super easy to navigate the sidewalks and walk around down there compared to what we saw in Portugal, where if you got within 5 or 6 city blocks of an attraction. It got crazy.
Also, gotta say, we didn't have to deal with the slippery tiles that we did in
Yeah.
both Porto and Lisbon. Porto, it really affected us in the morning if we were going to go out and get coffee and it had recently rained. The tiles, even in good runners, and we both have really good runners, was really a tricky walk. And there were mornings where we actually turned around and went back inside because it wasn't worth the slipperiness. But here, easy walking everywhere. I don't think in Dublin we've ever really hit any hills, or very walkable, super walkable city.
Yeah, and it's not a big distance either. So when you're in the core, you can pretty much walk the entire thing in 4 or 5 kilometers and do a loop around. Like it's not a massive center city, so it's very walkable and it is easy to
Yeah,
do.
you can do it. We did it, what, in a couple hours, hour and a half? Couple
Yeah.
hours to walk around on our little walking tour that we did and saw everything.
It was, and it's. I would say, and this is where it can be a little contentious. I guess it depends on your experience, but I would say that it is a nicer, easier city than say most North American cities from a downtown core perspective. We were able to walk around. There wasn't any points at which we particularly felt unsafe. It does get a little, I guess, rougher as you go north of the river instead of south of the river. There's more, street people and possibly addicts hanging around.
Maybe a little more industrial.
But you don't see. Again, it's far less serious than in most North American cities that I've seen. Like even walking around Calgary downtown is much worse in terms of that sort of thing, right? Let's talk a little bit about transit and public transportation. We've taken a fair bit of it,
Yeah.
and as everybody that knows me knows, I'm not a huge fan of that. But I would say here has been a very nice experience. We've taken the tram, we've taken the DART, which is sort of the local train, and we've taken the sort of the intercity trains a couple of times now around Ireland,
Yeah.
and I think they've all been fantastic.
They have clean, safe, easy to maneuver on, off, on both ends wherever we're going. Everything runs on time. Nothing has been delayed. We've been really lucky.
Yeah, it's been, again, we're neither of us are super experienced with the whole public transportation thing. And I forgot, we actually took a bus too. So
That's right.
so add that to the mix. But neither of us are super experienced at it. So we weren't sure if we would know how to manage it like right away. But we haven't had a problem. It's been, the information provided is very good. The information at the stations is very good. When we get on the tram, it tells us the next, how many minutes away all the next 3 or 4 trains are. It's never more than 6 or 7 minutes at the most.
Mm-hmm.
And usually we're able to just get on one almost within minutes when we get there, or a minute or two when we get there. So it's been really good. Having the Leap card, which is sort of the top-up card here, has been really helpful. It makes it easy. You just tap it when you get on the train. You tap it when you get off the train. And it works for the DART and it works for the Lewis tram.
It's really easy. You don't have to go through any gates or put coins in or have tokens. It's a plastic card. It's very sturdy. You tap to get on. When you get off, there's a machine. There's machines at every station. You tap on and you tap off.
And there's an app to top up the card,
Yeah,
which
super easy.
actually makes it a lot easier than having to go up to a machine in a busy train station and navigate that process. So it worked out really, really well. Super easy. Let's talk a little bit about costs. Probably the one drawback of Ireland, otherwise everybody would live here, is that it's expensive.
Yeah.
And it's, in some ways it's expensive. For sure. If you were to do a basket of goods, I'm sure you could say it's more expensive than any place else here around Europe. But I haven't found it to be quite as bad as I thought it would be. Some things are reasonable and some things are really expensive. What have you found in terms
I agree. When we were at our Tesco grocery store, you need a Tesco card to get kind of the local discount. We did try to get one. You can't get it because we're from Canada. But the non-Tesco card price was usually double. So it might be €4 if you don't have a card, it might be €2 if you have the card when you're checking out with the cashier. Some of the cashiers were awesome. They would just yell at somebody behind us and say, do you have a card? Can I scan it for these folks? And you get the points. One cashier actually had a card around her neck. She was getting the points, which was great because it allowed us to get the discount. But generally we were shopping for the Tesco brand, which was generally the cost, half the cost of the regular brand anyway. So we could really manage our grocery costs. There were some things that were surprisingly and shockingly cheap, like a box of cereal and bread, amongst other things. So our groceries were pretty good price overall for the month. What I found a little bit outrageous is when I had my nails done in Portugal, both in Lisbon and in Porto, it cost me €60, which is, I don't know, what's that, CAD?
$90.
$90. Here in Ireland, I had them done twice, and it was €118, which is, what, 160
Yeah,
CAD?
a lot.
So it was shockingly expensive on that.
I think it comes down to everything has a 23% VAT added onto it. So, and you can do your own Google research, but Ireland's a bit of a tax haven, so they got to get their money somehow. They get it through the VAT, and it just makes things more expensive. The food
Restaurant food.
Yeah, it was close. Like it is definitely more expensive. But it wasn't like shockingly overly expensive. I think the average price for a pint of Guinness is anywhere between €6 at a really cheap place to maybe $8.50 at a more expensive or more central place. So if that gives you a ballpark idea of kind of what it costs, it's more expensive than Canada, but not like humongously more expensive than Canada. So. The one thing I did want to mention, though, too, is that a lot of, I know when we came here, one thing we were scared of, and like lots of people told us this, and it's probably true in some cases, but people told us that the food would not be good, and that the food would be sort of bland and whatnot. And we've seen that online a ton as well. And I don't know if we just hit 100 really good places and we got lucky, but we haven't found that at all.
No, we've loved the food.
Maybe it's because we like pub food and we're sort of into that. And after Portugal, where there wasn't really pub food, it's kind of cool to have it again. But I found the food quality
and the selection
at pubs and at restaurants alike has been very, very good. Again, it's not cheap. Even at pubs, like even when we're in the small towns going to pubs, and usually we try and avoid the ones that are the most touristy ones. We try and stay away from...
Which is why you didn't see us go into the Temple Bar. It's really expensive.
But still, I found the food quality to be very good everywhere.
Yeah,
right?
we never felt that we weren't getting good quality for that increased price.
And honestly, I'm not even a fish and chips guy, but I love them here. I've been eating it pretty steadily here. Yeah. And it makes for everything. It just has great flavor. Everything's been really good. I'm surprised how good it's been. And that goes to the seafood when we're on the coastal towns.
Oh, the seafood was amazing.
All the seafood chowders that they have and different kinds of seafood that you can order have been great. All of the sort of the traditional comfort foods that you would expect, the pies and the shepherd's pie and the
shepherd's pie, seafood's pie, lasagnas.
I had bangers and mash one day. It was excellent. Like it's all been super good. So I think that part's been really, really nice.
The only other thing is Dan should explain why we're not ordering Amazon all the time here.
Yeah, and we'll...
Because we wanted to, and there were a couple of things that we couldn't get here easily, which would have just been easier if we could order them on Amazon.
Yeah, okay. So let's talk about how interesting it is not being able to order Amazon here. So Ireland has Amazon service, but we can't order it with our Amazon accounts. And I'm very hesitant to switch over to an Ireland Amazon account because we have so many things that we subscribe to through our US Amazon account. And I don't want to screw those up, right? So basically we haven't been able to order anything online, which makes ordering things like electronics really hard.
Yeah.
There's no Best Buy here or even a close equivalent. Honestly, the electronic selection was better in Portugal than it is here, and I think that's because in Portugal there's no Amazon at all. Here there is one, but you have to have an Ireland account for it. Or they'll try and ship the stuff from Canada here, which doesn't work.
Wouldn't get here before we left.
So yeah, that part's been interesting. It's this whole trip, I think, and we'll do a whole video on maybe some of the challenges of long-term travel, but that's one of them, is not being able to order stuff online and have it delivered. Plus, we're in a gated apartment complex here, so getting somebody through to the gate to drop stuff off is complicated as well.
And you actually need the code to get out.
Yeah, which is a bit odd. But you need a code to get in the gate. You need to figure out which door it is we're at.
Which building?
This complex. We'll do a little bit of a video on that. But this complex is many towers, and each one has many entries for the different units.
Sections.
So each entry only handles 6 flights of apartments, but only like 2 or 3 on each floor, and then you got to go to different doors to go to the other ones, and they don't connect. So it's hard to get anybody to come here to pick you up. When we leave, we're going to be getting a cab to pick us up by the Lewis station because it's easier.
But we have kind of suffered a little bit by not being able to get Amazon. Not that we horribly need it, but there have been a couple of things that would have helped, especially with the videoing and some of the electronics.
And I'm drinking now unoaked organic Chardonnay, so that's how things have changed in my life.
And how much was that?
I'm much healthier now. I think this wasn't too bad. This was about 20 euros.
In the store.
Booze is a bit more expensive here. Again, the wine was dirt cheap in Portugal.
Oh, it was. We drank a lot of it.
Hard to compare, but we'll see what that's like on our next stop. So that takes us to our next stop, which will be Antalya, Turkey, and we'll be going from what's really cold here right now. So we're hitting temperatures that through this week, for the first time, we'll be hitting temperatures at the lows of around 6 or 7 degrees, and at the highs of around 14 or 15 degrees Celsius. So this is as cold as it's been. We'll be going to Turkey, where we'll be looking at lows of about 24 Celsius and highs of about 30, 31.
Yeah, and that's come down.
So in fact, it was like 36 this week there. So, but we're hopefully it's cooling down as we get there. So it'll be a very different experience to go there, and I'm sure culturally and everything else will be very different. But we're pretty excited, I think, to do that one. And it's kind of nice that we got to come here, which is much more comfortable. Ireland it's not hugely different from Canada. Moving around here has been basically the same as moving around Canada. But now we'll be going to somewhere that we totally don't know what to expect, so it'll be exciting. But it looks like a fantastic place, lots of history, and looks like a gorgeous, gorgeous area. Yeah,
I agree. We're really looking forward to it. We've got some things planned. Our Airbnb is very, very close to Hadrian's Gate, which is incredibly old. We're looking forward to the food. Everything we've seen is the food's going to be awesome. Turkish coffee. So
yeah, it'll be lots of food, and it looks quite a bit cheaper. So it looks like it'll be an easier place for us to manage. They've gone through inflation there as well, it sounds like, but still compared to North American standards, will be quite a bit cheaper. So. Anyways, thanks for sticking with us on this trip. Hopefully we'll get to see you guys all in person here one of these days again. But until then, we'll see you from Turkey.